Hey guys, welcome back or welcome to my channel. So today I'm going to be talking about loneliness in college, and I've actually been really wanting to talk about this topic, but I was just holding off until I moved back to school. So I just finished my first week of my senior year, and I already feel myself falling back into the cycle of being really stressed and then becoming more of a recluse as an effect of being stressed, and then that just leads to a negative feedback loop of me being like too anxious to leave the house. And I had never experienced this kind of stress or anxiety until I went to college out of state. And even in middle school and high school, I had like a lot of social stress in middle school because like I didn't have friends, and then I was like the weird kid. And in high school, obviously there was like academic stress, like your AP classes, and my high school was just also really competitive, and also like college apps and SATs and stuff. But even back then, I never felt the kind of anxiety where like I'm afraid to leave the house. And I also never felt this during my first year or year and a half of college when I was going to school 30 minutes from my house. So for context, I was like born and raised near Boston, and then I went to a school in Boston for the first year and a half, and then I decided, hey, like I wanted to transfer schools, and I ended up coming out to LA. And ever since then, whenever I'm like in school in LA, I feel like I have crippling anxiety. And recently, even though this is my last year, and it was honestly a lot easier coming back to school this year than it was last year, because like I'm literally on the countdown until like I'm out of here for good. But even then, I felt a lot of anxiety coming back. And during my first few days of classes, honestly, I have like a pretty rough selection or a rough course load this semester. So after like Monday and Tuesday, I was really stressed. And then when I was calling my parents yesterday, they were asking me, oh, like how has your first week been? And I told them that for the past week before I left for my classes, I all of a sudden felt like I had like a shortness of breath, and I felt like my breakfast was like I was literally gonna throw up my breakfast. And like my classes either start at 10 or they start at 2, so it's like later on in the day, I would say like they aren't 8 or 9 a.m.s, and I usually eat my breakfast pretty early, so by that time it's already been a few hours since I ate. And I also don't stuff myself to the point where I want to like burst and vomit, but for some reason, right as I'm about to head out of the apartment, all the food just comes like rushing up. And then my dad was like, that's kind of a mini anxiety attack, because when he was getting another degree a couple years ago, he said that when he was like printing out a whole workload of like papers for his test, he realized that there's like so much material, and he had the same reaction as I did, but just like on a greater scale. And I realized that I'm always afraid to start the first day of school, even though I've been in this game for like so long. This is including kindergarten, my 17th first day of school, so there's really nothing to be afraid of, and it's my last year. And like theoretically wise, it's my last year, like I'm never gonna see any of these people again, so even if I do embarrass myself, it really doesn't matter. But even so, I'm like literally scared to start school on the first day. And I realized that after coming here, I didn't have like the safety net of being able to go back home on the weekends to just like de-stress. And I also didn't have like my hometown friends, even though I'm not talking to like a good amount of them for various reasons. But yeah, I also don't have like those friends to fall back on. And back at my first college, I was really lucky enough to have a really solid friend group, and since coming to LA, it's been the first time since 8th grade that I literally haven't had a friend group to hang out with. It's been so weird. And when I don't have this safety net, I know that I'm a lot more insecure, in the sense that it feels like the stakes of making new friends is just that much higher, because I don't have any at the moment. So there's not as much of a I don't need you as my friend, but it would be nice to have you as my friend. It's more of a like I kind of want you and need you to be my friend. And honestly, this is like the first, or actually kind of the second semester, where I've just completely given up on finding friends in my classes. I mean, for 2 of them, the professor was like, oh, turn and talk to the person next to you. So in those classes, I do have someone that I'm kind of talking to, but in all my other ones, I gave up. I just sat in a random seat in the back, and I'm just trying to go to lecture, get my work done, and then just graduate. But then before this, so last year during junior year, and also my first semester here, spring semester of sophomore year, I really was trying to find a friend in every class. I don't know, it just felt like everyone was unapproachable. And by that point, everyone has their own friends, so when you have your own friends, you're kind of less reluctant to make new ones, or at least that's how I felt like most people were. So yeah, I felt like it was a struggle to make friends in my classes, even though I really wanted to. And also, I'm a really introverted and shy person, and I'm fully aware I have like RBF. I probably look really judgmental, even though I'm not judgmental. It's just like my default face or my default expression. But yeah, I remember last spring semester there was an incident where I went up to a girl in one of my classes, and then I like in a classroom was in a basement, so I also wasn't even sure if I was in the right place. But I asked her, oh, is this like this class? And she said it was. So then I just like sat next to her, and then I think I asked for a name or something, but she didn't seem like she really wanted to talk, and I already sat down, so I'm not gonna get up and move to another seat. And then not even 5 minutes after I sat down, her friend, or I guess the friend she was waiting for, came, and they got up and moved to another row in the room, and it was like hella awkward because there were already other people in the room that saw me go up to her and then sit down. So I was like, oof, I got rejected. And then like a couple minutes later, those two girls ended up moving back to the row that I was still sitting in. So I don't know what that deal was, but they still like didn't talk to me. And at that point, I'm the kind of person where if I feel like you don't want to talk to me, I will just like shut down, and it's like it can't be reversed. So at that point, even if they did talk to me, I don't think I would really say anything back. And that's probably a character flaw, but I don't really feel like fixing it. And also last semester in the spring, there was a guy in one of my classes. It was like the first day of class, and he came up. He was like, oh, I didn't know you were in this class. He was like just walking to, a seat in front of me. And I also didn't really know what to say. I was just like, oh yeah, like I'm like in this major. And I didn't really know this guy personally. It was just back in the fall, so like a year ago at this point. We had taken a couple like quizzes or like take home exams together as like a group. There were like other people. One of the people in the group invited me to take it with them, so I was like, sure, obviously I'd rather take it with a group than take it by myself. So yeah, I had known him kind of in passing from there, and I'm not really a party person, and this person I know is kind of like a partier. Nothing wrong with that, it's just like different types of people. So I'm also the type where if I don't really see potential for us like hanging out, I don't really see a point in us talking, even to make small talk. Like I'm not a fan of small talk. So after I said, oh yeah, I'm in this major, I felt like most people would have tried to make more conversation, but I just stopped talking. And I think after class the polite thing would have been to be like, oh, like I'll see you next class or whatever. But I was really debating in my head if I should say like bye or just like wave or something. But when I got up, this person had his back to me, so I was like, whatever, I'm just gonna leave. And then as I was getting up, I saw out of the corner of my eye this person like glancing at me, so I think they expected me to say like bye or something back, because I know that's a normal thing to do. But I guess I'm not normal because I didn't do that. And then I felt really bad afterwards, and I was like, oh my god, what if this person thinks I'm rude and like I just don't want to talk to them, and they end up never talking to me again, which ended up happening. They like haven't spoken to me since then, and I don't blame them. But yeah, I think that was like my fault. And at the same time, like I don't really care, but I know that I'm not doing myself any favors because these are like misconnections happening. And when I first got to school, I was debating about adding accounting to my major, which I ended up doing. But I was like checking out these accounting clubs, and one of them, maybe I won't say it by name, but it's like an accounting frat that I feel like more than 50% of accounting majors are in. And it was one of those welcome events, so I thought that it'd be mainly new people or like potential members, and then a little bit of e-board. But when I went, it was in a basement. I feel like it was in a tiny room, and I felt like it was over capacity because there was literally no way to walk. I was like 10 minutes late. There was already like no seats left, zero space in between the tables. I had to like squeeze to a random seat in the middle of the room. The air was hot, it was stuffy, it felt like hard to breathe, and I felt like nobody was open to talk to me, because turns out most of the people in the room were already existing members, or they already knew someone in the club or in this accounting frat. And despite the crowdedness, if that's even a word, of the room, they still play those really dumb games where it's like, oh, if you're a dog person, go to this end of the room, if you're a cat person, go to the other end of the room. And they did several rounds of this dumb game, and each time they were like, oh, like talk to a couple of people around you, and I would turn, and then everyone will already be in a group, and then I'll go up to a couple of people and be like, oh, like what are you guys' names? And I felt like they didn't want to talk to me. And like you can tell obviously like social cues when someone's not really open to talking to you. And one of the other girls that were new, I thought she could be like my comrade in this stupid situation. But turns out her sister was on e-board, so like I really just didn't have anyone to talk to. And it was also a dumb decision on my part probably to go to this new event on my own, because I felt like everyone else that went were like kind of buddied up, or they went with a friend. And then I ended up leaving early, and I just like never looked back on that club because it's so cliquey. Also, I don't know why accounting majors are so cliquey, because you would think y'all are geeks, like nerds, quiet people. No, they're so cliquey and so loud. Literally, the classes that give me the most headaches are my accounting classes. And it's also partly because before class everyone's just like talking and talking, and I get like a headache and I get socially anxious and I want to go home. And also the dues for that club was like 300 something. Oh my god, there was like a bug, but the dues for that club was like 300 something, and it dwindles each subsequent semester. So like by the 4th or 5th, I think you pay like $0, and I was not going to essentially pay for someone else to be in a club. And also I think having decreasing dues with each semester gives them kind of an incentive to stay in a club, which I also like. I know myself very well. If I join a club, I don't really have friends in it, I'm not going to keep going. I'm going to stop going. So yeah, I knew that was what was going to happen if I did join this club. But yeah, that was also one of my failed attempts at finding friends through clubs, because everyone you ask, like on Reddit, your mom's friends, your siblings, if you have any, that's what they all say, like make friends through clubs. Obviously that did not really work out for me. And there was also another club. I feel like this is also kind of off topic, but I did also try to join I was like accepted into this volunteering frat called APO. I feel like the common denominator here is just to not join clubs that are frats, but I didn't know it was going to be so fratty. And honestly, when I signed up, it didn't even register to me that like the APO, or the 3 Greek letters, made it a frat. I just thought it was like a club with like this kind of name in it, but that was like super fratty. Everyone loved to party. I'm not a party person. Nothing wrong with being a party person, it's just not me. So that club also didn't work out, and I kind of gave up. And also at my school, I don't know why, but every club literally requires you to pay money. Like at my first college, that was not a thing. Like it was only special events that, you know, if it's like a potluck or a dinner, then you'll pay money, but you're not going to pay like a membership fee at the very beginning. And honestly, a lot of these clubs have it be like $45, $50-ish, and all that money for sure is just going to alcohol. Yeah, whenever I'm in these scenarios, especially during like the first year that I was here, I'm like, what did I get myself into? Because if I had stayed at my first college, I would be taking classes with my friends. Like I miss my friends literally every day that I'm here, and sometimes I do really regret transferring just because of the social aspect. I know if I had stayed at my first college, I would have been a lot happier. Like maybe the name, I don't even feel like the brand name of the school I'm at is like even really that strong, but maybe it's worth it in that aspect. But I'm definitely a little bit miserable here, and it sucks knowing that I dug this hole for myself. And I'm the type of person that really does believe like if you dig your own grave, you gotta like sleep in it. So I know I set the situation up for myself, and I just gotta live with it and like tough it out, and it's only temporary. But yeah, whenever I'm in these like awkward social situations, I'm like, what the hell did I get myself into? Like, why did I do myself so dirty? And I do have like a couple friends here, but it's not as strong as like the friend group I had at my first school. And I feel like if I had like a solid friend group here, a lot of these awkward situations like just wouldn't faze me. Like I wouldn't really even care. And sometimes, especially at my school, I feel like now I'm just complaining about my school, but it's like a school of extroverts. So when I was first making my rounds to all my friends, telling them, hey, like I'm going to this school, one of my mentors or my bigs in this Japanese club I was in, he was like, I'm surprised you're going there because it's a school of extroverts. And I was like, yeah, I've heard about that too, but I was kind of dubious about how true that would be. Like how can a whole school be full of extroverts? But I came here and that's literally the case. And that also makes me feel super out of place, because it seems like everyone else loves it here. Like we're in LA, not like in downtown LA, but we're like close to it. We're near K-Town, Little Tokyo. And downtown LA honestly isn't even that far anyways, but we're not in like a bougie area like Westwood or Beverly Hills. But like we're in LA, that's the point. And everyone else seems to love it. There's like a frat row, people go to party all the time. And then there's me like being miserable. And this also does make me feel a little bit guilty, because my parents are paying a lot more for me to be at the school than they were for me to be at my first school. And I'm like, my parents are paying all this money for me to be here and I'm not even enjoying it. And I guess I can't help how I feel, because I really did or I have tried everything, all the suggestions that people usually recommend about trying to make more friends, like talk to people in your classes, join clubs. I guess partying's the only one that I haven't tried, but never gonna try that. I guess at this point I'm just on a countdown of when I could graduate, get the hell out of here, never come back, and I already have like some friends that I'm happy with. And yeah, I just know that post-grad is going to be a lot better for me because I'm going to be back home, going to be working and making money, finally not running my bank account on a deficit, and I'll be around all my friends again. But while we're on that note, I don't know if I'm the only one that does this, but I literally am on a countdown, like by the day until I could go back home. Today, I have 83 days until I could go back home, which, like, to me, it sounds insane because that's more than 2 months, more than 50 days. Because last spring semester, from spring break until I went home for summer break, that was like 50-something days, and that already felt like an eternity. And this round, I have like 30-something more days of that, which means that I have a month more of torture that I have to endure until I could go back home. But yeah, that's essentially 12 weeks for me, and I don't know. It makes me feel like I'm in a turntable of hell, if that's even the correct phrase. But yeah, I also wonder if anyone else does this. And honestly, people clown on international students so much, like the way they dress, the way they talk, and their habits and stuff. But honestly, I have so much respect for them because if I were to go to school internationally, especially if they were in like a homogenous country before they came here, the culture shock, like the racism, because there is racism even in college, and just being far from home will push me past my limit. And also, I feel like if you have a bad living situation, it can really add to the stress and a feeling of loneliness. So this year, luckily, I was able to get my own place, or my dad was just willing to pay double of what he was paying. So I don't know if you can see behind me, it's like my bed, and this is like an empty bed, and this room is actually designed for 2 people. So it's a 2B, so 2 bed, 2 bath, and there's one girl in the other room because she's also renting out a room for herself. And I'm so glad she's normal and I actually enjoy her company, and we've talked more than I did in the whole last year with my previous suite mates. So my living situation last year was actually the worst I've ever experienced. It was me, a girl that I had been rooming with since sophomore year. She started out okay, but then like with these 2 new suite mates in the other room, she started to change, and the one that I was sharing a room with, we got into like, I want to say like fights or arguments, but they're like disagreements because she wanted to bring her friends over or have them over some weekends. I'm like, I'm just not comfortable with that. And she was like, oh, I'm also splitting rent, so it's not fair for you to make all the decisions. And then we had a compromise like 4 times max per semester. And literally when her friends are here, even though they are quiet and they are like respectful and clean, I guess, I just don't like seeing bodies in my apartment and like going out into the kitchen feeling awkward like eating at the kitchen table with them just there on the couch or also at the table. And also, these people, they're not friendly, and maybe they think I'm unfriendly because I don't make an effort to talk to them, but you're the guest in my apartment, so why do I have to like try to cater to you? And you are even my guest, and you're like an unwanted guest. Like, I don't want you here. If I had been like, hey, yes, like bring your friends over, obviously that I'm obligated or inclined to be, you know, nice and friendly, but I don't want y'all here. So the fact that I'm not even being disrespectful or like rude or standoffish, maybe I'm being standoffish, but I'm not being passive aggressive to you, is already kindness enough. Oh my god. And the 2 people in the other room last year, they were so bad. It was like the classic horror stories where one of them brings the boyfriend over all the time. One time, and they're always like doing that. And one time I was on speakerphone with my parents, and then my parents are also on speakerphone because they were visiting my relatives in Taiwan, and I had my room door closed, and then it's like my room, the living area, like kitchen, couch, and then the other room, they had their door closed, and even with all this distance and barrier, I could still hear them going at it. And then my parents are putting me on speakerphone, so I was so embarrassed and scared that all my relatives and the people, like the guests in that room, could hear what was going on in my apartment, and they would think that I'm associating myself with like crazy people. And her boyfriend will be over like doing that at all hours of the day. It could be noontime. It's been like noontime, early afternoon. I would be out there cooking, trying to eat, and I would be hearing that. Or it could be later in the afternoon, like evening when I'm eating dinner, or at night, like 10 p.m, 11 p.m. And at that point, I'm like going to bed. And there were a couple times where I was sleeping, like lying down on my bed, trying to fall asleep while listening to that going on. And the other girl, she was like so dirty. Actually, both of them weren't the most hygienic, but the other girl, she would like make the kitchen so dirty. And she also used my stuff at the beginning of the semester, and one time I like caught her. I was like literally in the kitchen too, and she used my stuff. I was like, hey, like, what are you doing? Don't touch other people's stuff without permission, especially since we aren't even close. And the first time I saw this girl, I came into the apartment. She was at the kitchen table. She looked up at me. I didn't see a hint of, hey, I want to like say hello or something, but I'm just like a little bit shy. I didn't see a hint of that. So I'm like, hey, okay, this person doesn't want to talk to me. I'm just not going to talk to them. I'm going to go to my own room. And that's like my bad habit, I guess. But yeah, the habit came out. So I'm like, we're even close. Why the hell are you using my stuff? So she would make the kitchen really dirty. She would cut onions. I also really hate the smell of onions because it smells like BO to me. And even when I close the door, the scent of the onions literally gets on my towel, on my clothes. Like, I'll wear my stuff the next day. Clean clothes, they smell like onions and BO. And I'm so disgusted. And also one time she brought her sister over for like a week. She didn't tell me. She told all the other people, but she didn't tell me. And then they would have movie nights for like over an hour. They play the movie on max volume while I'm trying to study. And also this girl's voice, oh my god, it's like the most nasally, high-pitched voice ever. I don't know how she has a boyfriend. I don't know how the boyfriend gets turned on by this, because if I were the guy, that would be such a turn off. But hey, to each their own. There's someone out there for everyone. She invited the boyfriend over for a little bit. She invited her sister over for a week. And then for the first couple weeks of the semester, back in the fall, she'll be out in the common area, like talking on the phone or on Zoom for hours, literally hours on end. It's not even like a 20-minute, 30-minute call. Okay, that's like okay here and there, but it will be hours. And I will not be able to focus. I'll put in my AirPods and then I will still hear her. And I'm not about to damage my ears by turning up the volume of like whatever I'm listening to max volume to drown her out. So I would just like sit there and suffer and listen to her really annoying voice. And also at the very end of our lease, she was the only one that stayed during the summer. So I had asked her, hey, like, can you Zelle me the utilities bill? Because I paid for the utilities. Like, everyone has to pay an equal share of the utilities. But I'm like, hey, if you're a responsible person, you should Zelle me the cost of the utilities fee, because you're the only one that was using it. Like, why am I paying for you? I don't even like you. I don't want to pay for you. And then she goes to me. So as if like my impression of her couldn't get worse, like somehow people always manage to exceed my expectations in the worst possible way. But yeah, when I was living there, it was the most stressful situation ever. I felt like a prisoner in my own room. Felt like I didn't have my own sanctuary. And I would literally have to time myself, like, okay, I know their schedule, they'll be in the kitchen from this time to this time, so I'm gonna have to get in there as soon as possible and start cooking and clean the area for an hour. Or like if they're out there with their friends, also they will always like pregame like every other weekend, and they'd be playing the same dumb music in the common area with their friends drinking, and it would be like terrible. Because I feel like I couldn't even go out to grab water at that point, because it would be like a random group of people in my apartment in the kitchen playing loud music. Yeah, that definitely exacerbated the feeling of loneliness, because I felt even further from home, like from my parents and from my dog, from my friends, and I felt really alone in my apartment because I also couldn't even relax in my own house, like in my own home. But yeah, I guess to end things on a lighter note, it's only a temporary situation. Like if you're lonely in college, it's only for 4 years or 5 years, however long you take for college, and once you graduate, things definitely will get better. And I would say I definitely did get a little bit depressed when I was here, and I don't know if I could like really call it a depression, because it's like a temporary depression, and I know like I see a light at the end of the tunnel, so that definitely makes me feel better. And I'm just always thinking about the day when I'm like flying back home for the last time from LA, and I could like close my eyes and put this all behind me. And I also think if you're going to school out of break, or even if you're in state and you feel lonely, just thinking about those breaks, or like for me, the dates that I could finally fly home, albeit like 80 something days from now, it gives me something to look forward to, and it just gives me that kind of motivation to take on the next day. And I think for smaller milestones, like making plans with a friend on the weekend to, you know, check out a new cafe or grab lunch or something, that gives you something to look forward to, that's also something good. Or if it's like a TV show or like a manga chapter or something, if any of you guys are into manga or webtoons, something like that to look forward to also makes school a little bit more bearable. Because for me, like every Tuesday is when Lesseed updates, and that's like kind of the way that, and that's kind of what pushes me through Monday and Tuesday, because I'm like, okay, I get to catch up on one of my favorite webtoons and just kind of detach from life for like 5 to 10 minutes. But yeah, that's all I have for today, and if you're still here, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.